Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, 30 days into what? July and now August. We still have no state budget. Shortly, we'll have a couple of the state's top reporters to talk about that. But first, higher education, it also is without funding. Stay with us, and we'll tell you what that's all about.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Hi, welcome back to the program. We still don't have a state budget. We're not likely to have one for some time in the near future. Joining me to talk about what I think is an important component of the state budget debate is sitting right across from me is the Chancellor of the State System of Higher Education, Chancellor Cavanaugh, and sitting next to him is President Bill Ruud of Shippensburg University, a great school, by the way. I have a lot of friends down there. I want to point that out to you right now. You got a good school.
They remember you.
And I remember them. All right.
All fondly.
Yeah, all fondly. Well, we don't know about that. Chancellor, let's talk. Look, there have been two sort of hostages in this debate. One was the employees of the state, and this week that's likely to be taken care of. And then it was the whole higher education community, which was singled out in one of the budgets, in the House budget, for move you aside, figure out how to fund you later. Now, that had to come as something of a shock to you, given the fact that you're the largest, you have more students attending your schools than any other component of education in the state, at the lowest cost other than the community college. What's going on there?
Well, you know, at one level it was, Terry, but at another it in a way made us feel really good, because if we're that important to be put in that kind of conversation, that says a great deal about the esteem with which we're held. And you know, just looking at where things sit right now with the various proposals, you know, we're very pleased at what both sides are attempting to do for our system. But in a way, no.
Yeah, so you don't think it was so much that they were saying, I mean, look, higher ed, it's not just you, it's the state-related, it's a community college, it's the fee of money that goes in. I'll talk with you about what you think that'll do to your students in a moment. But look, this is a pretty serious matter, and it has to be somewhat disruptive. I mean, it has to be disruptive of life on for folks like President Ruud on the campuses, no?
It does make it difficult, but one of the things that we have decided to do is that we have an obligation to educate our students.
Right.
And irrespective of the debate going on in the Capitol right now, we intend to educate our students. Mm-hmm. And so to the best of our ability, that's exactly what we're going to do. Whenever that debate ends, it'll end, and you know, the sooner the better, I think, from our perspective.
Well, I think we would all agree there. All right, let's talk a little bit about, look, you're on a campus. You've got 6,000 or 7,000 students. You'll tell me exactly how many.
8,
I know 8,000 now. You see,
yeah.
Now, explain this to me. What will this mean to students and parents come a month from now when they start to get back on your campus?
Well, it's already affecting them, Terry. We sent our bills out, and those bills are due the 10th of August, so that students and parents have to pay their bills and get them in. And I think it's important for the families to know we have, all the PASHE schools have payment plans. So if people are concerned, give the university they're going to a call. But as the Chancellor said, we're all about quality. Yeah. We're all about delivering education to students. We've got great students that stay in Pennsylvania, and we will do our best to make sure that quality education is delivered to them.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that, look, full disclosure, I'm a former professor at one of the schools. You'd have been my boss had I been there. I don't think professors really have bosses, as you know, having been one yourself. But here's the point about this. Is this going to be day-to-day disruptive? I mean, clear that up, make sure viewers and their parents, for the most part, students will enter classes, parents can be assured, despite the debate over the budget, that life will go on the college campuses, correct?
Life will go on, absolutely.
Life will go on with no disruption. And in terms of the student aid, you think that when it's all settled, the students will be basically held harmless, including with the fee difficulties?
Well, that's going to be a different matter, I think, in terms of held harmless. I want to give a great deal of compliment to the financial aid offices of our 14 universities, as well as the faculty and staff that help advise the students. There's no question that the financial aid picture is much more complicated and difficult than it's ever been before. Yep. And the fact that FIA doesn't have a budget doesn't help right now, particularly. But loans are more difficult to get. On the better side, Pell Grant numbers and support is up significantly. So it's a mixed picture on the financial aid side. And there are some private foundations out there that had promised a level of support, but because their portfolios took a hit, they may not be able to. So it's a difficult picture. But as President Ruud said, if parents or students have questions, make sure they get in contact with our financial aid folks.
We're going to run to a break. I want to talk a little bit about some of the programming and the programs that you've been doing. We'll be back following these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by PAConstructionJobs.com. For more information about rewarding careers in the highway construction industry, visit PAConstructionJobs.com. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Hi, welcome back to the program. We're talking about the budget and particularly the higher education budget. The Chancellor Cavanaugh, the state system of higher ed, is with me along with President Ruud. He's the president of Shippensburg University. Let's talk a little bit about some of the changes that have taken place. I mean, over the last couple of decades, quality of the schools have gone up markedly. I tell you that as a former professor who helped hire a lot of professors and taught a lot of students. What would you say to folks out there about what sort of your signal accomplishments have been at SHIP, and we'll focus on your school.
Sure. I mean, along with the rest of the system, I think one of our very important accomplishments has been four-year graduation rate. For 7 years in a row, we have led the system with 1 out of every 2 students graduating in 4 years, 2 out of every 3 in 6. I think it's also very important we responded to the marketplace with programs in business, supply chain management, nanotechnology, computer science, computer software engineering. So we are very adjustable and responsive to the state of Pennsylvania in terms of the needs, along with our core mission of education, both at the secondary level and the elementary level.
Yeah, one of the changes that I think has taken place has been sort of branching away from sort of core academics. You still have those, still the primary focus, but doing workforce development and professional programs. Your board has approved a myriad of them over the last 10 years. Anything new along those lines, or you continue to sort of focus on that side of it, more job-related majors and programs in the universities?
Well, one of the things that we've done a great deal of recently is in the area of job training, as you point out, Terry. Last year alone, we had 80,000 enrollments in job training programs. These are non-credit type programs. That's especially true up in the northwest part of the state, where there are no community colleges, and we're taking on more of that role all the time. And in the credit majors, many of them, as President Ruud pointed out, are the ones we're growing are in healthcare, high tech, pharmaceutical-related areas, chemistry, and security. We've got some outstanding programs in those areas that are nationally recognized. And I think that we've built all that on the long-term basis, you point out, like teacher ed and some of those other areas.
And you do it on a fairly small administrative budget, a very, very small. I'll point that out. So no, you're not spending a lot of money, on administration. You're limited by law on that. You may, maybe to your chagrin sometimes, but that may not be a bad.
It's not a bad
so you're getting you're getting more quality out of the dollars than you might otherwise do. All right. One other thing that I wanted to ask you about is, in terms of transfers and the ease with which it's been a debate over the years, about particularly from the community colleges. There's, as you know, legislation that deals with that. Right. But by and large, isn't that transfer substantially easier today than it was 20 or 30 years ago?
It's probably easier than it was 5 years ago,
yeah.
Terry. It's what you don't see in the general transfer legislation is there have been a lot of individual agreements worked out among the 14 PASHE schools where we go to HAC, we go to the community colleges, we're program specific, so it is very, very easy for a family or a student to go to a community college for 1 year, 2 years, a semester, transfer those courses, and to some degree it's seamless, as it should be.
Yeah. Well, I think before you go, Chancellor, I want to ask you about the funding. I know, people guys were over funding, but we got to talk about this. You're actually receiving less per student now than you did a decade ago.
That's true.
Given the fact that you're teaching more students, maybe with larger class size, something we'll professors and presidents always debate the class size thing. But that has to be a compelling argument, it seems to me, that you use when you go to the legislature to say we're doing more with less.
Absolutely. If you equate for inflation, 10 years ago we had $1,100 per student more than we do today when you add together the state appropriation and tuition. What we've been able to do, obviously, is become more cost-effective and efficient. But at the same time, as President Ruud gave you great examples at SHIP, across the system, our quality indicators are up. More students are graduating. Our programs are accredited. And so we've been able to do a good job on both sides. Now, obviously, we're reaching a point where something's got to give. And we'll be taking a close look at that, but you're right. Our total funding control for inflation is down over a decade ago.
Yeah, good point. Last question. Recession, fewer jobs, rising enrollments, applications up.
Applications up
everywhere, right?
Everywhere. Applications up, transfer applications are up, enrollment is growing. Students,
no jobs, so students stay in school longer, right?
No, they don't necessarily
not
stay in
longer,
school.
but they go.
We are getting both, Terry. We are getting both students who want to go to school, and we're getting students who, for some reason, are in a career change mode where they can go back to school. And because of the location of our 14 schools across the state, it's very easy to get into a program that will assist you in your career and your life.
All right. Thanks for coming in. Great
Thank
update.
you. Thank you,
Hopefully we'll get the budget settled. All right. Two of the state's top reporters are coming on. We're going to find out, where is this budget battle? Is that it? Situation? Mess? Where is all that going? After these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the State System of Higher Education. 14 state-owned universities. The state system is the largest provider of higher education in Pennsylvania. And by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Joining me, as often is the case, two of the state's leading reporters, John Micek from the Allentown Morning Call. He's sitting right there, and Brad Bumsted from the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review. The budget is we're now more than a month late. John Micek, we're into August. Conference committee has been set up, two sides sitting across the table, 6 of them, 3 R's, 3 D's. Any progress at all this week? Any progress in resolving the deficit?
As we sit here, there's been just one meeting, and as we were discussing before we went on air, it was a thoroughly surreal display. Lots of jockeying for position, lots of marking of territory. Entirely too early to say whether there's been any progress, but based on this very early engagement, it's not particularly encouraging.
Now, to set the stage, Brad, we have a $3.3 billion deficit. The Democrats and the Republicans, for all practical purposes, are about $2 billion apart. And much of the debate in the conference committee is centered around what items?
Well, in broad terms, it's over spending and revenue. And the Republicans take the position we can't even look at how much we're going to spend on education or all these other areas until we determine how much revenue we have. What do we have to spend? The Democrats pretty much have taken the point that, no, we need to look ahead at which programs need the most funding, and like education, and try to deal with it there, figuring that revenue will come later. But the point is, if there's a deficit, somehow you're going to have to make that up with taxes. Yeah. So it's really a debate about whether we're going to raise taxes.
Now, look, you two guys have been around the Capitol for a long time. You've covered budget fights. You've covered fist fights, I think, in the legislature at one time.
1991.
Yeah, right, at one time or another. But, John, let me ask you this question. They can't even agree on how much money is in each other's proposals. How can you get resolve a problem when there's no agreement on what each side says they're prepared to spend?
Yeah, I know. It's one of the great metaphors. Are they agreeing on the shape of the table? I mean, there's not even a table yet. It is as deeply entrenched, I think, as I've ever seen it.
Now, again, Brad, $2 billion apart. The Democrats somewhere around $29 billion, and there is a version in the House. We're going to get to that later about what might happen next week or this week when the House comes back. But $2 billion apart, let's say $27.1 billion, and who knows, maybe $29 billion. Can you make sense of that? What's the sense of that?
Governor Rendell has said that he's come down to 28.5 and even threw out a figure of 28.2. He says, I'm moving. I'm the only one who's compromising on this, and the Senate Republicans aren't compromising. And in some respects that's true, but they view it as we can't compromise because we don't have the money. We can't spend more than $27 billion.
Yeah.
One thing that should be noted about the conference committee is, as this was about to get underway this week, just before it started, Representative Dwight Evans, who's a conferee, looks over at the press and he goes, "This is your big day." He looks at me and says,
"What's that mean?"
What he means is that conference committees in the past have just been pro forma events where the deal is struck beforehand and they bring it in a public meeting, approve it, and they're out in 5 minutes. This is now, dragging out where they are debating all of this in public for good or bad.
Yeah, but John, that's a great point. But didn't the governor early on say that he wasn't going to debate this in public? The actual numbers, or can't you confirm that?
I mean, that's a beautiful thing to say, but the fact of the matter is, everyone negotiates through the media. Everyone scores.
Yeah.
Tries to score
but
points
when they actually
through the
get
press.
down to trading the numbers on this, is that really going to be done at that table in public? It's never been done that way before, as far as I know.
Well, I mean, one presumes that there will. I mean, these conference committee meetings are subject to the state's open meetings law. So if there are more than 4 of them in a room together, it constitutes a public meeting. One assumes that there will be back-channel discussions, private phone calls, where they don't run afoul of the law.
All right, we're going to break. When we come back, 2 hostages. We talked with the Chancellor of the state system earlier and the President of Shippensburg. Now we're going to find out about state employees and what is likely to happen this week when the House returns following these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Penn Future, where we believe that every environmental victory grows the economy. And by the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School, bringing educational innovation and freedom to the children of Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to the program with John Micek and Brad Bumsted, journalists all. We're talking about the state budget, the failure to get a budget on time with a huge deficit and no agreement. All right, Brad, one of the big issues and hostages in all of this has been the state employees, 78,000 of them or so, paid late, not paid at all in some cases. This week there is possibly a resolution to that part of the problem. Explain that to our viewers.
Well, Governor Rendell said last week that he was giving legislative leaders more or less an ultimatum and saying if there is no agreement, we're going to move forward with a plan whereby the House will send me a Senate-passed budget, and I will take that and blue line or use the line item veto to strike out most expenditures and just approve expenditures for state employees' salaries and some government operations. If he does that, Rendell believes that will create pressure on the legislators to negotiate, because school districts, counties,
hospitals,
arts councils, all these groups won't have any funding. And he believes that's
a likely
put the pressure
scenario,
on.
really, isn't it? Do you think that's Democratic leaders in the House are likely to go along with that? And
yeah. I mean, I spoke with Dwight Evans last week, and he said that we'll take it under serious consideration. But he said, look, if there's no agreement, we have no other choice.
All right, John, look, let's try to figure this out. Now, here we are. We're in August. This has not been resolved. There's ideology going on. There's politics. There's pay hike, the legacy of that. Let's sort of go through, why are we where we are when, 47 other states, many of which have a more serious budget problem, have resolved this?
If you listen closely, you can hear the distant quacking of a lame duck. I mean, that's really what this comes down to. Governor Rendell is in the last 18 months of his administration. This is going to be the last substantive budget he presents to lawmakers. Because of that, he's very much conscious of legacy, and because there are no political implications for him, he's set the controls for the heart of the sun, and he can afford to be stubborn. Conversely, Republican legislators say, well, Governor Rendell is in the last 18 months of his administration. We, therefore, do not need to deal with him and do not need to give him anything.
And he has a lower approval rating, not arguably, right?
Not
so does the legislature,
He provably has the lowest approval rating of his entire administration. And this has conspired to create this perfect storm of stubbornness.
Ideology and party. I mean, some have said that Republicans are mindful of trying to win that state house back where they're in the minority, and that by putting the blame mostly on Democrats, at least the Republicans, on spending, their argument is that maybe they can regain the House. That's a possibility.
Yeah, this whole debate is taking place in the most partisan legislature in the country. That's part of it. Another part of it, clearly, and it's an internal thing, but it's history, and that is that in 2003, a similar scenario played out. Rendell held public education hostage, and in the end, Senate Republicans caved and gave him the 10% income tax increase that he was seeking. And I hear from Senate staffers that, look, this is on their minds. Newer senators who have come in or are now in leadership are saying, no more. This will not happen again.
Okay, we're about out of time. Put your prediction caps on. Does this get settled in the next 2 weeks, or do you think it goes on longer than 2 weeks?
End of August.
End of August. What do you think? You've covered a lot of these.
I think it goes through the fall.
Here we go. Great update as always. All right, we'll see you guys soon. You come back and you'll keep bringing us updates. All right, thanks for watching another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And as always, stay well.